I was recruited into CIA as I was leaving the Air Force. Now, I was a horrible soldier. And anybody who knew me at the Air Force Academy, anybody who knew me in uniform, any friend or enemy or foe that I had ever had would agree that Andy, back then I had a different name, was not a good soldier. I didn't like to shave. I didn't like to polish my shoes. I didn't like to wear a nice uniform. I didn't like the military. So it was really natural for me to want to leave when my service obligation was up. I was trying to go into the Peace Corps because I'm a very simple creature. And all I really wanted at the age of 27 was tent sex with a hippie chick somewhere in Africa. That's all I wanted. There's a lot of 27-year-old guys out there that would give me a high five because they kind of want the same thing, right?
Yeah.
That's what I was aiming for. Tent sex with a hippie chick in Africa saving children. I'm 42 years old. I would still say that sounds like a pretty awesome ambition. So I'm applying to the Peace Corps, and in that application process, I get a tap on the shoulder from CIA. And CIA basically says, if you finish this application with the Peace Corps, you'll be disqualified forever from working in intelligence. Because those are two non-starters. Once you work at CIA, you can never do humanitarian work with the Peace Corps. Once you work for the Peace Corps, you can never do covert work with the CIA.
I did not know that. Why is that? Do you know?
Because they want to protect the humanitarian elements of the United States, and they want to protect them thoroughly and completely anywhere they go.
Okay.
So there are certain covers that CIA will never use because they're primarily dedicated to humanitarian service, and they don't ever want humanitarians to be arrested on espionage charges. So you will never find an undercover Peace Corps officer. You will never find an undercover religious magistrate. Like you'll never find a priest or a rabbi who's truly an undercover CIA officer. You'll never see an undercover medical doctor or an undercover nurse because these are protected categories, and CIA wants the whole world to know that they are protected so that, China, Russia, North Korea, Syria, Iran will never arrest a doctor and accuse them of being a spy.
Okay.
Right?
Makes sense.
So that's why they do it that way. So that's why there's such a hard divide. So what I wasn't realizing at the time is that all the things that made me interested in the Peace Corps were also personal interests that were attractive to CIA. If you're going to go into the Peace Corps, you're going to be risk tolerant. CIA wants people who are risk tolerant. You want to see the world. CIA wants people who want to see the world. You're not intimidated by foreign cultures. You're not intimidated by foreign language. You're not intimidated by, long bouts of loneliness. CIA wants all of that too, right? So it's a natural recruiting ground for the agency to basically be looking at people who are interested in other career fields that closely parallel what a CIA officer would encounter.
Okay. What is it about you that you think they found interesting?
To be very honest, I think they knew I was brown. I think they knew that I was an Air Force Academy graduate, right? So from the time that I turned 17, my entire life has been in service to the federal government. So there were no surprises here. They knew my drug history. They knew my medical history, my dental history. They knew my family upbringing. They knew my grade point average. They knew everything because I had gone to a military college and then I was a military officer. So put those things together, plus the fact that I majored in Chinese at the Air Force Academy. I had traveled to China in the Air Force Academy. I had, they had my scores. They knew that I was a top performing linguist. They knew that I was a top performing humanities student. Like there were certain elements that they already knew because it was on paper and I was known to them.
And you obviously already had a very high clearance if you were on the nuclear program.
Correct. And as a nuclear missile officer, I knew where our nukes were pointed. I knew whose nukes were pointed at us. I knew, and I had TS-SCI Cat 6 and 12 clearance, which is a 9-month process to get a TS-SCI. So by hiring me, they basically shortcut 9 months of my recruitment because I already have the clearance.
Yeah. So you got in. What did they have you doing?
So that's where things start to get kind of sticky. So I got in, I became a member of the National Clandestine Service, the NCS at the time. It's now called the Directorate of Operations, goes back and forth. I came on board through a program at the time that was called it was called CST. What is that? Clandestine Service Trainee, I think is what it was called. It was basically the old guys who come in to be spies. The young guys who come in to be spies are in a different program. So because it takes them longer to train. But for us, we had life experience, so they kind of put us on a short track. And I went through that training plan, got my field training done, got all of my weapons training done, my driving done, do all the training stuff that's pretty cool and fun. And then you start actually doing the work. And a lot of my work was focused in the third world to start. So a lot of stuff in Africa, a lot of stuff in South America, a lot of stuff in Southeast Asia. And that was my primary focus, was doing kind of what I call the dirty work. There's a lot of dirty work in intelligence, dealing with scumbags, terrorists, narco traffickers, drug dealers, whatever else it might be. People who pose threats to your national security, but they don't pose long-term threat to your national security. After a few years of that, my wife was kind of running a similar path. I came on as a human intelligence officer, a field collector is what I came in as. My wife came in as a targeter. A targeter is a different skill set, but still in the same NCS, the National Clandestine Service. Now, after we met and started dating, that intramural relationship isn't as uncommon as some people think it is. But after we married and started dating, there was an issue that popped up at CIA that's still very sensitive. I'm in the process of trying to get myself clearance from the agency to talk about it publicly. But there was an issue at the agency that forced the agency to move us, and not just us, but other people like us, out of third world, garbage slinging, and into something called hard targets. Hard targets are those targets that pose a long-term threat to the United States. North Korea, Russia, China, Belarus. These countries that pose a long-term strategic threat to the United States are called hard targets. And they decided to move a number of high performers out of the third world and into these hard target jobs to fix the mistake that they had found themselves in. And that's how my wife and I ended up getting moved out of our roles doing third world work into roles doing very strategically relevant work. And that's where we ended our career.
What did you like better? Did you like the third world operations or first world?
It's interesting. I liked them both, but for different reasons. Third world operations, you have to lean on your creativity and your risk taking. Like nobody is giving you a lot of oversight. They just want you to get the mission done, right? This is the priority. We don't care how you do it, get it done. So there's a big emphasis on individuality. There's a big emphasis on results. There's a big emphasis on outcomes. First world operations, hard target operations are different. There's a lot of oversight. There's a lot of weight in process instead of outcomes, right? Okay. But there's also much deeper pockets. So you're running way more sophisticated operations on larger teams. You're working with excellent colleagues because only the best get pulled into these hard target operations. So sometimes you might be dealing with the guy that kind of fell off the back of the short bus when you're in the third world.
Okay.
But you're dealing with really top tier individuals when you're in hard targets. So I liked them both, but differently. If you like this short clip, make sure you click here to see the next clip or here to see the full podcast episode.
Freedom! So fresh, so new.